Alastair, are you ready? Late last year, 2023, we launched the consumer research, which was was based around the research done by Eric Wolf from the ICA and his team. So in some of this, you'll see terms that are probably not Australian. Our next consumer research will be more Australian focused, but there's still some really good gems in this report. And if you haven't accessed it online and you don't after today, you are actually crazy. But I'm going to hand over to the guy who actually ran the research, who wrote the report. We're going to delve into a couple of particular demographics. Alastair Liptrot.
Thanks, Doug. I won't call you crazy or anything like that. But we obviously did this study October last year, so it's been a little bit of a time in between. There might be some changes out there in the marketplace that's going on right now. I suppose overall objective of what we were trying to achieve with that was tracking the changes. There was a study done back in 2018 and just making sure, see what's changed in the market in both the Australian and US markets. Trying to help out with some investment direction of what's going on there, and just some deeper insights. One of the things we try and do with any of this work is try and look at, ask a whole heap of questions around profiling, and so that might be attitudinal profiling or demographic profiling, and then try and pull apart the findings. So if I relate it back to what the last speaker was talking about, just allowing for better targeting. So, and I'll talk about that in just a second. What we did, pretty much a 15-minute survey, speaking to a national representative sample, car wash users and non-users. They must have washed their car within the past 12 months. 1,000 in Australia, 1,000 in the US. Most of the stuff we're talking about today is Australia-based. There is a bit of benchmarking stuff with the US at the start, but we have presented the sort of comparison of the US in the other deck. So as Doug said, that's online for you guys to grab. And we did it in October 2023. And it's amazing. It feels like yesterday, but we're almost a year down the track. What we're going to talk about today, quick recap of the 2018 versus 2023 study, looking at overall usage, key drivers, frequency, additional service, price satisfaction, etc. We're going to look at what I was talking before, a few different demographic chain or differences. So we're going to look at males versus females. This is within car wash usage only I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to try and compare males and females overall. That would be a very dangerous game, and I'm not up for that debate right now. And then we're going to look at also boomers versus millennials. So I'm a Gen X, so I sit in the middle, but how they approach car washes differently. And I suppose what we're trying to do with some of this sort of stuff is probably, again, in relation to the last speaker, is how you can potentially target through different messaging or different approaches to some of these different demographics, or how you can grow your business by specifically potentially targeting or not targeting some of them as well. Hopefully that makes sense. So this part's a bit of a recap. So we've presented this before, if anyone was online last year when we presented the findings. There's been a significant increase in the percentage of consumers that use their car at a car wash in Australia. So it's a 13% increase in Australia. However, Australia still lags behind the US when it comes to car wash usage. So I suppose the good thing in here is there's plenty of upside. Right? So the market hasn't matured as much as the US, and there's plenty of upside to try and get usage up. I suppose the key to growth, which is fairly obvious, is trying to get those people that switch between washing at home and washing at the car wash to try and push most of their usage into the car wash. So they're already accepting of the car wash, but they're doing a bit of a combo deal at the moment. We're going to try and get them across to just being solely washing their car at the car wash. Some of the key measures that we talk about, and we actually looked at it. We asked a question around what are the key car wash what are the key benefits of washing your car at a car wash. It's all these measures, which I think is really important, which shows that increased usage, is they've all gone up versus the 2018. So you see some of the big ones around washing the car was more enjoyable, a better quality of wash, which is probably more important. It's using less water than at home. It's safer for the environment than at home. It's better overall value than washing your car at home, etc. So you start to see those measures, and those attitudinal statements are actually growing in the Australian market from 2018, showing that it's been a fairly positive experience for anyone that's using the car wash across the board. I suppose the action that we talk about with this one is just continue to drive the positive perception of the car wash benefits, just to drive that increased usage, right? So the more we get the benefits being agreed to, the more usage is going to be there across the board. From a frequency perspective, now this is an interesting one. Because what we call, I suppose, penetration, so overall usage goes up, you tend to have probably more light usage, right? So when you look at, I suppose, frequency of car washing, that's actually dropped down. But it's because you've got more light users coming in and using the market a little bit more. And that would be the equivalent, that would be the same in any market. So if we do studies on, let's say, food and groceries or something like that, once you have more light buyers in, they're probably going to buy less often. Same with car wash, if you're going to have light users come in, they're going to probably use less often, but you've got them in the door, which is actually really important, probably the hardest part to actually do. It's a matter of converting them to be able to use the car wash more frequently. I suppose one of the ways we sort of look at here is trying to drive frequency by incentivising light users to use the car wash more often. Now, I suppose the question has to be asked: are they valuable customers or not? So the incentive has to be relative to their value. But I suppose that's one way of getting their frequency. If you're looking to get frequency up across the board, it's trying to get those light users to use more. And I suppose yes. No, light users is in how often they use, so overall. So, yep. So it would be maybe once every 6 months, once a year or anything like that. Yeah, not necessarily on their value of spend. Yes, I suppose that's it. That's the equation you've got to look at. If they're light users and they're not spending a lot, are they worthwhile trying to incentivise to get in to come in more anyway? But that's sort of the way up around them. But I suppose with any light user, it's trying to shift behaviour is difficult. But once behaviour is shifted and it becomes a norm, you can kind of just get them on the train. So it's about how much you invest in trying to get them to, I suppose, use more or use more features as well. The importance of additional services has also increased. So I suppose what we found here is usage increase, and then all the measures around additional services have gone up. So wheels and rims cleaned, having the interior cleaned and vacuumed as well, even around tyres shined, and also hand towel dried and fragrances being used. I suppose there's an importance here to understand that because the importance of the additional services increase, there's an opportunity here to leverage, I suppose, the growing need for these things, and that, I suppose, that upsell. And I'm sure you see that in the marketing that you do, and you guys are a lot closer to your businesses than I'll ever understand. But trying to, I suppose, upsell and get consumers to drive additional value of the dollars that they're spending is really important. But I suppose these measures are pointing in the right direction from that perspective. And the last one, probably getting back to the last speaker, which is around car wash communication. Now, people are seeing more communication from in car wash marketing. Problem is, it's probably just coming off a very low base. So getting back to what we were talking about before when we compared to the US, there is upside in usage, and that upside can come back to things like car wash communication. So the top of mind awareness, understanding what's around them, sort of knowing the benefits and features. And you'll see some of the stuff when we talk about the difference between males and females and boomers and millennials, ways to start to target different, I suppose, demographic groups to actually drive and help their needs for actually what they're looking for when it comes to a car wash, because we're not all exactly the same, and there is a very big difference into how we operate, and you'll see that in some of the numbers that come out across the board. So I would say here from I suppose this is a claim situation. There's still a lot of upside around. I don't think people are being flooded with communication from car washes, and there's an opportunity there to actually really drive usage as a result. And then from a price satisfaction point of view, so price satisfaction's significantly increased in Australia, with 63% either somewhat satisfied or very satisfied, but it's still not to the same level as the US. So the US is actually price satisfaction is quite high. Sometimes there's measures that you can have where people are like in different countries can it's not always apples with apples, but does actually give you a bit of a pretty good view as to say, okay, satisfaction's good, could it be better? Yes, it could. And that's not necessarily, when we talk at price, you don't necessarily just have to look at price, it's overall value of what the customer's getting. And that's also really important. I suppose the opportunity here is to continue to drive the value proposition to ensure consumers feel that they're getting their bang for buck with what they're doing. And I suppose, especially now, I'm doing a lot of work with clients at the moment on cost of living. And we're definitely seeing discretionary spend across the board being questioned. And so making sure consumers are seeing value across the board is actually just getting more and more important, because every single cost is going up. Everything from utilities to education, to travel, to what else? Oh, housing. That's a big one. Everyone's feeling a pinch on that sort of stuff. So all those sort of things are adding up. And then so discretionary spend's building. It's not saying people aren't doing things, but they're definitely throwing a bigger question mark around how and when they do anything. So creating that value proposition is really important. Yes.
Did you mark this based on any salary question with the response?
That's a good question. We did ask that. I can go and have a look at that. I'm not as close because it was in October last year, but I can have a look at that in comparison to see if there's a difference there. But yes, no, there would be a cross tab that we can look at to see if there's a, I assume your question is if they're higher income.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be more satisfied if it's, millennial percentage of your income.
Yes.
If it's, a large part.
Yeah.
You get a demographic of suburbs where car washes would be more, the take-up would be quicker and perhaps, easier because they're earning more in that suburb.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll have a look at it, and I'll pass it on to Doug. So some of the areas of learning, just a quick recap. In fact, I might go to the next slide because it actually does a better summary. I suppose in Australia, there's been a significant increase in the percentage of consumers that wash their car. There's still plenty of upside. If we're trying to emulate the US market, which I would say is, well, from my conversation with Doug, is more mature, there's plenty of upside to try and still get that growth across the board. Frequencies decline because of light users. That happens all the time because you bring more light users in. They're not using as often, but we can actually try and change the behaviour of light users, try and get them operating more. The importance of additional services is increasing, and communication's increased in the Australian market, but there's still plenty of room to move on that. And obviously, you're being empowered with the tools to do that by the last presenter, which is really good. I suppose the key to growth, from the perspective that we see in some of the reports that were done out of the US as well, is just trying to get those consumers that switch, that'll wash their car at home and they'll wash their car at a car wash, just trying to get them to do that behaviour and see the value in washing at the car wash. And you'll see some of the measures that come up later on by the demographics that are potentially ways to do that. Increasing frequency to incentivise light and medium users. Again, we want to get those people using more often and probably doing a more valuable clean as well. I suppose demonstrating the benefit from both cost and quality point of view, so to trying to get that value proposition. And then there's an opportunity to drive repeat and increased usage and awareness through communications. All right, so that's very clear, and I think be interesting to see the case study. I'm not going to be here tomorrow to see that case study. I would really like to have seen it. But it's understanding how the benefits of this happen across the board. And that last one there, that was probably more a question. There was probably more of a statement that came up in the last one. But there was an element of sustainability that was popping up, probably more so than 2018. And so, if there is an issue with drought that comes up later on, it's probably something we can look at around trying to put people's mind at ease around using car wash and water usage and things like that. But sustainability does come up a little, like in every category. It's sort of coming up more and more. When cost comes into it, it drops down. So it's a bit of a funny old one as to how important it really is in people's lives. You have to genuinely have an attitudinal versus behavioural gap that sits. Often with something like Australian-made, people will say they want it and they don't actually do it. They don't behave like that, but it's very important in their world. So a bit of a similar one with that fourth point. All right, so yeah, males versus females from a car wash perspective. So as I said, I'm not going to go into any other detail. I think the car wash usage. So the make of the vehicle, this is essentially the country of the badge, not manufacturing where it comes from or where it's actually made or anything like that. Females are more likely to have Japanese cars, where males are more likely to have US, but think Rangers, Mustangs and stuff like that, more US, even though they're not made there. Females are more likely to have Koreans, and then males are more likely to have luxury cars as well. What's the difference between males and females from I suppose a purchase price of the vehicle? So females are more likely to have less expensive cars, and they're more likely to buy used cars as well than males. And I suppose that just gives a bit of understanding when it comes to the usage stuff that comes up in a second, that car wash usage, they're just less likely to be using it because they probably don't see the need or importance to maintain I suppose, the quality of their car from a car wash perspective. But there is opportunity there. And then from a statements which people agree with, females they're just less likely to prioritise washing their car than males. So washing a car is not that important. It's something I only do if I have extra money or extra time. All right, so it's actually really important here to sort of think about, okay, when we're targeting females overall, how do we get them to see the value from a price perspective and also from a time savings perspective, all right? So I'm talking about that as how they go. And you'll see as well from a car wash usage perspective, they tend to use I'm going to get terminology wrong here, so apologies for this, but the one where you drive in, car stationary, everything goes over the top of it. Automatic, that's the one. Thank you. And they tend to use that far more often than anything, than males do. So they're looking for speed and ease when it comes to washing their car. So just an opportunity there. So this is actually the slide that I was talking about. You can see there, that's right, or use an automatic, it actually says in the question. Car wash where the vehicle is stationary and the machine works around them. So you actually see that females are higher there, and the males are much higher in the full service car wash that pulls it over conveyor while the equipment cleans the vehicles, etc. So just thinking about that and like that default usage, where probably two schools of thought into this sort of stuff is, do you push the automatic more so for females because that seems to be the one that they default to more, or do you show better value in some of the other areas, in some of the other car wash types where potentially you can get more dollar value out of them and they can see the value once they start using it? So it's kind of a bit of I suppose, a tricky one, but it just gives you a bit of an example of the actual current behaviour of what they're doing now. And then when we look at attitudinal statements, you start to see where males and females definitely pull apart. So males definitely see this as it costs less, it's better overall value, it's safer for your car than washing it at home, and the car wash is also safer for the environment. So they're the sort of things that pull out for males. The only one that really pulls out for females where they score higher. So overall, I suppose, as an agreement level on a lot of these statements, the only one that sort of pulls out, it's just more enjoyable than washing at home. So good opportunity there when you're thinking about comms and targeting messaging, just around how, the comparison. It's always good when doing marketing around having an anchor point. So what's your anchor point that you're comparing it to? In this case, with females, if you're doing something around that sort of stuff, you'd be anchoring it to washing a car at home, and what sort of, I suppose, a less enjoyable experience that actually is, and how you can sort of do it, have it done for you, or have it done at a car wash. And then the last one is around just frequency of washing the car. So you can start to see that females are really a lot less frequent than males when it comes to washing their cars. And that might have something to do with the price of the car that they're owning, the fact that they're potentially more likely to purchase it used, or the fact that they just don't see the value in as much in washing the car at a car wash. So they're just more likely to be males are just more likely to be washing once a week or more often, or a few times a month, or once a month, and then sort of females take over after that when it comes down to it. So driving frequency with female users is going to, if you think about it, 50% of the population, pretty important market. Driving frequency is actually going to be really important with that cohort. So just to summarise that last section, I suppose males are more likely than females to drive, luxury cars or cars from the US, while females are more likely to buy Japanese, European, or Korean cars. Females are more likely to have less expensive cars. Females are less likely to see the importance of washing their car at a car wash. Males are significantly more likely to use a full service car wash, while females are more likely to use an automatic tunnel. And males are more likely to see the value and safety benefits for the car of using the car wash, while females just probably see it as being more enjoyable than washing it at home. So, and then males obviously use it more often. So some of the action areas, I was sort of tapped on these before, but just tailoring offers that specifically to both males and females. Now, I suppose what I'm saying around this, because females are using less left often, that does not mean you should forget about males when it comes to targeting things like that, because actually they're already being used. You do not want to lose your loyal customers right now, but making sure that I suppose the key to frequency would be through females, and the key to probably greater value is probably through males. So you can try and drive them a bit harder. But thinking about your targeting and messaging that's specific to each of those markets is actually really important. And that digital marketing, which is gold for all this sort of stuff, is you can start to do test advertising to each of them with different comms that go out there to try and actually drive some of this messaging to get a better result. I suppose for male car wash users that are more likely to already see the value of using the car wash, and have a higher spend, just loyalty's key. All right, you just want to make sure that they're true to your particular car wash. You'll see it, and actually in the millennials versus boomers. In a second, I don't want to steal my own thunder, but millennials tend to switch car washes a lot more than boomers. Right, so making sure you have loyalty is really important, and kind of just making them feel special. If they're a high frequency, high loyal user, how do you make them feel special? I always think about the airline programs. If you fly a lot, which I used to, I don't anymore. COVID put a stop to that. But I was like a platinum Virgin person, and it was bloody easy. Flying was easy because you knew that you were a valued customer. I'm now no longer that person. I'm sitting at the back near the toilets. But you certainly had that loyalty there. Like, I knew I was always going to fly with Virgin. Now I'm a switcher, I suppose. And then for female car wash users who are less likely to see the importance of using a car wash and use the car wash less often, focusing on car wash usage frequency, it's the best way for growth. Either highlighting the benefits, maintaining the resale of the value, all right, resale of the vehicle, or emphasising the enjoyment or ease of using a car wash, something like that. I mean, I'm sure there's many other ways that you could possibly do it, but they were based on some of the messages that sort of popped out there. And then, yes? Yep. Oh, it's nationally represented, so around the country. So depending on the state, so we'd have... Yeah, regional and the city. Yep. The
question I have about the males versus females is, were you asking about their car or who washes the car for them? Because you know what I mean? Like at my house...
Yeah, good question.
...washes all the cars, even though they're not alone, they're not driven by males.
Yes. That's a good question. No, we didn't actually ask that. That wasn't part of it. It's probably something we should probably look at. Because I assume we'll do the survey again, but that's probably another question within there to pull it apart a little bit more. Yeah, no, it was asked as the individual, but they had to qualify as being a car wash user. So if they weren't a car wash, like if they didn't wash their car at home or in a car wash, they were out.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have actually. So we probably did cover that off. Yes. I'd like to be in your house. That'd be great. Boomers versus millennials. All right. As I said, I sit in the middle, so I'm neutral. I'm Switzerland on this one. But you will see some certain differences with them. Millennials are just likely to buy newer cars than boomers. So I don't really know why that is, but I suppose maybe boomers are holding onto their cars for a little bit longer. They sort of once they have it. It's interesting, actually. I'm going to make a point now on boomers right now that they are the only ones that are really spending. There was a Combank study done recently. They are the only ones that are spending higher than CPI right now, and anyone sort of under 55 is spending lower than CPI as a trend. So as a market right now, they have their cash. Everyone else has far more discretionary, I suppose, decisions to make on where they put their money. So I would say the boomers at the moment are quite a good little market to be looking at, just from a, I suppose, disposable income perspective. A lot of them paid off their houses. A lot of them super's been flying at the moment. So they're living a bit of a different world to other generations out there. Yes, millennials are weird. Like they're either going to have their vehicle is going to be under 20k, or like significantly more likely to have a vehicle under 20k, or significantly more likely to have it over 65, where boomers sort of sit more in that sort of 20 to 30, 39k bracket. So there is a cohort of millennials that don't really have particularly expensive cars, and probably due to their age profile or the income and things like that, or life pressures. But there's a lot that are pretty happy to invest in more expensive cars than than boomers would be. So they're pretty interesting, and you'll see that in some of the usage when it comes out in a sec. And then millennials are more likely to have purchased a car used, probably because that high proportion of under 20k and things like that, where boomers are more likely to purchase their car new, even though their cars are old. So their cars might be old, but they were still purchased new, and they've just held on to them for a long time. From an attitudinal statement perspective, they're pretty even on, like it's seeing that, washing their cars is an important part of the maintenance. There's no real separation there. Even as a discretionary purchase, and even not seeing it as not important at all. So kind of like, I suppose I don't pull out from that perspective. Boomers are more likely to wash their car at home than millennials, I suppose, is one thing. It's probably just, I would suggest, behaviour they've always done. If you think about the maturity of the market, and you guys would know more than this than me, but I suppose over the last couple of decades, the car wash market got more and more mature as it's gone. So they've just potentially always done that. So we talked about before about behavioural shifts. It's actually really hard to shift people's behaviour sometimes. Like if it's an ingrained behaviour, it's very tricky to change. And it sometimes needs circuit breakers to change particular behavioural patterns. COVID's a great example of a lot of people's behaviour would have changed as a result of COVID. We slip back into those behavioural patterns as well, but I suppose that's an explanation of why that might be the case. From, I suppose, a usage perspective, this is where millennials are a little bit like, I suppose, polar again. So they're more likely to use a full service car wash, but they're also more likely to use just a hand jet car wash as well. So they sort of pull on both ends, and I would say I didn't actually look at this, but I would say it would correlate pretty closely with their vehicle purchase cost. So if it's a higher purchase cost, it would probably be putting more and more, I suppose, value on the vehicle, therefore more and more input into the maintenance of their car. And then this was the one I was talking about before, which I think is probably most interesting. Just millennials are they're less loyal, and they're more likely to use multiple car washes. So boomers are, I suppose, they're more likely to be loyal. So one of the things we'll talk about at the end is just how do you create loyalty amongst, I suppose, a cohort of consumers that are happy to switch and change and do whatever. And that might be because they're looking for discounts, they're looking for different offers out there or different things that are going on. But there's opportunity there to try and create that loyalty across the board with them. And then some of the other key difference from an attitudinal statement perspective, just millennials are likely to see that the car wash costs less. They're likely to see it's better overall value, it's a better overall quality, and the car wash is safer for their cars. Because it's something they've probably grown up with, they've seen it and they've used it, and attitudinally they're pretty good there. So there's no real need for convincing on a lot of those sort of things. While boomers, and probably those boomers that might wash their car at home and also use a car wash, they're probably still in need of convincing. And so that's sort of where it comes back to the communication or case studies or things like that around showing either the value or the quality or the fact that it's safer as well. And then from a car wash subscription or a program sort of point of view, awareness is really low with boomers. It's pretty low overall. I mean, like this is one of those things that we talked about this in the earlier, and when we did the original presentation. But the awareness of the subscription model is pretty low overall. So like but then when we looked at it, overall usage is actually, for those that were aware, was quite high. So there was a real opportunity to just grow awareness of a subscription model program, which would cover two parts. You'd get obviously a higher value customer, and they'll be there for longer, but also stop the switching to different car washes and things like that. So it'll allow you to do that. But boomers overall just have a really low awareness of their monthly subscription. So there's a real opportunity there to sort of drive that. And as I said before, they're the ones with the cash. All right, so they're the ones that probably have the ability to invest, and discretionary spending isn't actually too bad for them. So final slide, just sort of looking at time. So from a, I suppose, summary perspective, just boomers are more likely to drive older cars than millennials, and they're just likely to purchase new. While millennials are that polar end, so they could have a car under 20k or over, or the more expensive cars over 65k's. Boomers are more likely to wash their car at home. It's just probably traditional behaviour. We spoke about that before. And millennials, this is at two ends of the spectrum of a usage perspective. They're either doing the full service or they're doing do-it-yourself, where boomers are more likely to have their cars cleaned by hand. As I said before, boomers are likely to stick to the same location while millennials shop around. And millennials are just likely to see the value, quality, and safety benefits of washing the car, while boomers, actually, one of the things that boomers are looking for, was one of the statements that came out, is they're just looking for less work. So as a marketing perspective, they just don't, they've done stuff for many, many years. They've probably washed their family's car for many years, and they're looking for less work overall because they've done it. And how do you sort of talk to that? And then there's very low awareness of the car wash subscription. So I suppose from a growth perspective, just tailoring specific offers that target both the boomer and millennial users. So don't think of them as one homogeneous group. Like, they are very different people, and the behaviour and attitude and things like that. Boomer car wash users who have awareness of car wash subscription programs, who have very low awareness of car wash subscription program, driving that awareness, I kind of see as the low-hanging fruit, because they genuinely do have money, they've got discretionary spend, and they just don't know about them. And so if you can get them in, they'll be loyal. It just creates just an easy one to get them. And then, because they are loyal, once you have them, you should keep them. Because that's kind of the way they operate. But for millennial car wash users, seem to be very polarising their behaviour and attitude. I suppose it would be best to focus on the high-value millennial consumer. They're just more likely to use. They're more likely to use multiple locations. It's just an opportunity to drive greater loyalty, so loyalty programs or whatever that may be, just to get them and keep them within the one, or your cohort of car washers. So So from that perspective, that is my presentation. Any other questions at all? Yes.
You just mentioned about low users, or people that come to wash and they just use the vacuums, or they don't even use the vacuum, they just use the rubbish bins.
Oh, right, yeah.
Nothing can do, because I'd like them to use the car, at least use the self-service car wash.
Yeah, it's a good question. We didn't actually ask about that specifically. I mean, I don't know. That was probably one thing we probably focused more so on the. We didn't speak about the vacuum side of things at all, and the usage of bins. I'm not sure at all. But I suppose, like it's anything. Is there a particular type of car that would come and do that, or is it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you chat them, they'll get upset and not come back.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I like chat them. So if you're not going to use it.
Yeah, right.
And they didn't. They got upset. I've had a couple do that. Once a week, every week, coming in, dropping rubbish and going. So I chatted them in the end and said you have to at least vacuum or don't come.
Yeah, I would say they fall into that millennial lower car model. I probably, just off the top of my head, is just not knowing the exact things. They would be low value anyway. You probably don't want them too much, or putting too much time or money into them. Yeah. Well, yeah. Any other questions?